I'm William Henry, and this is Ascension Keepers. After the genocide of the Essenes in 68 AD, the 1st to 4th centuries AD saw the Essene Ascension teachings go underground and reform as Gnostic. This religion was so named because it depended upon personal spiritual revelation, the gnosis or knowledge of God. Gnosis simply means knowledge, especially of divine mysteries, pointing to the mystical desire of the Gnostics to expand their consciousness beyond ordinary perception and to see beyond the veil. This enables access to the divine realm, and according to some scholars, the mystical path by which the Gnostics attained illumination is mapped and teachable. This means anyone can follow this path. Whereas in the past, ascending to God's throne and seeing His face was prohibited, and in my humble opinion, thanks to the Essenes, now a shift had happened. The Gnostics, practicing what they called Hekalot and Merkabah teachings, now began to emphasize the practice of ascension and seeing God. Through the choices one makes in their life, their spiritual practices, mystical techniques, personal deeds, and inner awareness, one can initiate an encounter with an angel and journey to heaven. We can get on our boat and voyage out of this world to the Merkabah, the chamber of God, the heaven of heavens, said the Gnostics. In preparation for this ascension, the Gnostics embarked on a process of self-purification aimed at perfecting oneself and gaining the higher spiritual vibrations of purity, holiness, wholeness, and righteousness. Practices like yoga, fasts, diets, cleansing rituals, singing songs, chanting of hymns, prayers, incantations, and repeating the divine name, active visualization, meditation were all used to expand the perception of the Gnostic adept. The effect of these practices included ecstatic trance, a sense of the soul, deep meditation, dream vision, hallucination, crossing into other dimensions, and ultimately, the dissolution of the human into light. All of the Gnostic spiritual practices were aimed at preparing the mystic to enter the celestial chamber of God or the Merkabah throne and an encounter with the Mighty One. After passing through 7 heavens, the mystic must penetrate the 7 resplendent palaces of the 7th heaven itself before arriving at the throne of glory, said Ezekiel. And once there, the traveler encounters God on His throne. The visionary was taught to expect God to be wearing a garment of light. The vision of it includes a mystical experience that transforms the body of the visionary into light. The Gnostics believed in a divine spark in man, deriving from an eternal divine realm, fallen into this world of matter and fate, and needing to be awakened by a divine counterpart. They upheld the Serpent of Eden as a savior figure who sought to provide humanity with key knowledge to awaken. As may be expected, the traditional church fathers saw Gnosticism as an anti-Christian heresy. Simply put, however, Gnosticism is the earliest form of Christianity. The primitive Christiani, the so-called heretics who preceded the historic Christians, were all Gnostics. It was Roman Catholicism that labeled them heretics in an effort to consolidate its growing power. In 1945, the Gnostic Gospels were discovered in Nag Hamadi, Egypt. These astonishing manuscripts contain the secret teachings of Jesus and the earliest Christians. Whereas Orthodox forms of Christianity found their dogmas and doctrines almost exclusively upon the outer teachings Jesus gave during His brief earthly life and mission, Gnostic Christianity focuses primarily upon the inner and secret teachings Jesus gave after the resurrection. That is, Jesus appears to the disciples in his light body form after his ascension. The Gnostics thought of themselves as the true interpreters of these secret teachings of Jesus. The Nag Hamadi texts, again discovered in Egypt in 1945, are Coptic, meaning they are Egyptian Christian examples of these texts. Until 1945, most of what we know about the Gnostics came from they who persecuted them. The Gnostics were condemned as heretics by the bishops of the early Christian church because they would not accept the canon of the New Testament or the Apostolic Creed or the authority of the new church. But now, with the discovery of the Nag Hamadi texts, we learned who the Gnostics truly were in their own words. Among several highly utilized but previously unknown Gnostic texts was the Gospel of Thomas, which contained 114 sayings attributed to Jesus. Scholars believe it was written during the second half of the 1st century AD. And it's claimed in the Gospel of Thomas that the sayings contained within this gospel contain the secret of salvation. Saying 1 says, "Whoever finds the interpretation of the sayings will not experience death." The Gospel of Thomas begins with the premise that our individual spirits once lived in the all, the spiritual universe of divine beings. Then, through some primeval catastrophe, the fall of humanity, some human spirits became imprisoned in flesh and blood human bodies and became trapped in the material world, unaware or blind to their true source. But Jesus comes along and saves them by revealing to them the truth of who they are, divine light beings who belong to another world. This realization frees them from the garments of their material bodies and puts them on the way to acquiring their robe of light. The doctrine of the soul's ascent through the heavenly spheres was a key teaching of Gnosticism. The ascension to heaven was equivalent to a spiritual resurrection, and in the fulfillment of the Essenes mission, Jesus cleared the way. In the Gnostic ascension teachings, strange beings called archons barred the way to the 7 heavens, and some maintain the archons sought to take human souls. But we don't worry about them because the Gnostics had a remedy or a fix. We could perfect ourselves and put on a garment of perfect light. In the Gospel of Philip, a 2nd century Gnostic work, transformation through gnosis not only allowed the ascent of the soul, but it also made us invisible to the archons, who some believe are actually extraterrestrial beings. Philip says that not only will they be unable to detain the perfect man, but the archons will not be able to see him, for if they see him, they will detain him. There is no other way for a person to acquire this quality except by putting on the perfect light and he too becoming a perfect light. The mysteries of exactly how to become a perfect light being form the backbone of the Essene revelation that was adopted into the Gnostic religion, especially a branch of it called Manichaeism. Most people may have never heard of Manichaeism or its founder, Mani, a Babylonian prophet who has been called the last Gnostic. However, this secret society of Gnostics were fundamentally Christians. Manichaeism fused early Christianity and Gnosticism and spread from Iran to Egypt, Iraq, and throughout the Middle East. This Chinese painting depicts Jesus as a Manichaean prophet. The figure can be identified as a representation of Christ by the small gold cross that sits on the red lotus pedestal in his left hand. This Chinese painting depicts Manichaean cosmogony with the realm of light at the top. A number of Manichaean hymns are addressed not to the historical Jesus, called Jesus the Messiah, but to the light messenger Jesus, referred to as Jesus the Splendor, a magnificent, shining being who displays the robe of light. According to Manichaeism, Jesus the Splendor is sent to awaken Adam and Eve to the source of the spiritual light trapped within their physical bodies. And the aim of the Manichaeans was the attainment of the light body, which they called the beaming garment. This immaterial or flashing light body beamed, meaning it radiated or displayed bursts of light. It came from a light garment that once belonged to Adam, believed the Manichaeans. It was also instrumental in allowing Jesus to be instantaneously transported or beamed through the wormhole or stargate, linking the world of spirit and the material world. Today's imagination is filled with militaristic views of stargate travel where transport is affected by advanced technology. And every day we find we live in a bigger and bigger universe. We find more and more planets every day and new galaxies. New theories on how the universe began come out all the time. Theories on physics are changing. You have M theory, string theory, multiple dimensions are debated and verified by scientists. And our sun is even now thought to be a wormhole or a gateway to heaven. Subatomic particles have now been measured going faster than light, which was thought to be impossible, opening the way for time travel or faster than light travel. In this modern context, the revelation of the existence of a secret race or tribe of transformed humans that have followed the way of light, the Essene way of perfection, and achieved the beaming garment should not surprise us. Nor should we be surprised at how advanced these beings could be. A study by Eric Davis for the U.S. Air Force Research Laboratory of Speculative Teleportation Technologies showed that to dematerialize a human body by heating it up to 1,000,000 times the temperature of the core of the sun so that the quarks lose their binding and become massless and can be beamed at the speed of light in the closest physics equivalent to the Star Trek teleportation or beaming scenario, would require the equivalent of 330 megatons of energy. And he says that to meet the information storage and transmission requirements would require concurrent computing capabilities to continue to improve by a factor of 10 to 100 times per decade for 200 to 300 years. This gives us an idea of just how advanced were the ancient perfect avatars who put on the beaming garment and beamed through the wormhole through spiritual rather than technological means. The Gnostics believed that they who wear the light body garment, the beaming garment, constitute a separate race of advanced humanity composed of awakened and enlightened souls from many time periods and geographical locations, including our own, and one can only hope including us.